So I said no. I need my phone here. Maybe soon we can do a story type. We'll see. We're making noise, okay? Okay, good morning. Let's begin with our bracha for reciting words of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. Remember, I said don't be touching anything that I don't look at. That includes that. So, if there is, we ended off the discussion last week that if there is a kind of dough which is made specifically in order that you should turn it into a spice, that kind of dough does not need the bread blessing. And the question is, share with Mushka, show some. And I apologize. So the kind of bread that he was talking about, I'm sorry, I just have the kids with me, so I'm a little bit all over the place. I heard Rita came back home. Is that correct?
Yes.
How's she feeling?
Good.
Thank God.
She still hasn't had her shoulder done. But I found a diagnosis finally for my legs.
Does that mean that they can help them?
Maybe. I'm going to go to a pain management interventionist, pain management, and they're going to give me some shots.
Okay, let's hope
and
they
they
work.
might work. I have problems with my back where I had my surgery.
Okay. With God's help.
Right.
Okay. So start with this one. It's the same. Blank paper. It's fine. I don't have any more pens. Check on mommy's desk if there's a pen. Mom's desk is, oh, there's a pen over there, a black pen on the floor. I'm sorry. There's a black pen over there on the floor, and check if any of those papers have one side that's empty. Okay. L'chaim. Check if those papers, you see those papers that are printed on them? Check if any of them have the back empty. Yeah, you can use those papers. Those is my pile of scrap paper that's for coloring on. Okay, so if they were made, so if it was made in a certain way, then we would make the blessing who creates forms of nourishment, and the after blessing would be the short blessing. So now that is a general category. For example, cookies and crackers fall into that category. The question is it possible that an item which usually has the blessing who brings forth kinds of nourishment, that we would actually have to make hamotzi and the full after blessing? And the answer is, we see over here a story about Mar Zutra that he based his meal on this kind of dough, and he recited the blessing who brings forth bread from the earth beforehand, and the 3 blessings of grace after meal after that. So we see a general rule, which is a big rule that we will discuss, which is that if you base your meal on something, it is considered to be bread. So you could have something that usually would not be considered bread. However, if it is the main part of your meal, we will make the bread blessing on it. Mar Bar Avashi said these types of bread, even though we wouldn't necessarily call them bread, a person would fulfill their obligation to eat matzah on Passover with them. What is the reason? Because you could call it bread of affliction. It's a bread that nobody wants to eat, and in that case, it is in the category of matzah. With regard to blessings, Mar Bar Avashi said, over a date honey, So honey that comes from dates, what blessing do you make? You don't make the blessing of fruits of the tree. You make the blessing by whose word all things came to be. What is the reason that one does not recite who creates the fruit of the tree as he does over the date itself? And the answer is that date honey is not the essence of the fruit, but it's moisture that drips from the ripe fruit. So we're going to see something similar about all kinds of juices. In accordance with whose opinion does he recite that blessing? In accordance with the opinion of the following Tana that we learned in the Mishnah. If a non-priest, a non-Kohen, ate date honey, apple wine, which I guess we would call today apple cider, or vinegar made from grapes of autumn that grow stunted at the end of the season and are unfit for wine production, or any type of juice made from fruits which are consecrated of truma. Rabbi Eliezer obligates him to repay the principal plus an additional fifth, because Rabbi Eliezer holds that he has misused the consecrated items. Rabbi Yehoshua exempts him from payment, because Rabbi Yehoshua holds that these are byproducts of the fruit and do not have the status of the fruit itself. Therefore, we see from this opinion about consecrated items, that fruit juice or date honey would not be considered, or apple cider would not be considered fruit, but would rather be considered a byproduct of the fruit. Therefore, we would not make the blessing over fruit. We would make the blessing, the catch-all blessing of who created, by whose words all things came to be. One of the sages said to Rava, what is the halacha with regard to Rima? And Rava said to him, well, I don't know what you're saying, because I don't know what Turima is. So Ravina sat before Rava and said to the student who had posed the question to Rava, in posing the question, are you speaking about sesame Turima, or safflower Turima, or grape pits Turima? So apparently, Ravina did know what it was. So there's three different kinds. Meanwhile, Rava understood the meaning of the term based on that question. He understood the meaning of the term, and he said to the sage, certainly you are speaking of pressed items. And you're asking what is the blessing of items that are pressed and squished together. And you remind me of a matter that Rav Asi said, those dates of Teruma, one is permitted to press them together and make them into Terima, because when you squish them together, the dates maintain their form. However, one is forbidden from making date beer from them, as in doing so the dates are damaged and it is forbidden to damage teruma. So the Gemara concludes from here that if it was dates that were squished into terima, one would recite who creates the fruit of the tree. What is the reason? Because they remain in their original state. So since they looked like dates before and they still look like dates, that is why we make the same blessing on it. Next question. What blessing do you make on roasted barley which honey or vinegar was added to? Is it considered a cooked dish, and therefore you would make the blessing by who creates the various kinds of nourishment? Or would it just be considered like a snack and not kind of a food? So Rav said one recites by whose words all things came to be, and Shmuel said one recites who creates the various kinds of nourishment. And Rav Chisda said that this is not actually an argument, because each is referring to a different case. This, where Shmuel said who creates the various kinds of nourishment, is in a case where it's a thick mixture and it looks like a dough. While this, where Rav said that one recites by whose word all things came to be, is in a case where the mixture is thin. When it is thick, he made it as food. Therefore, one recites a blessing just as he would over any food made out of the 5 species of grain. But if it's a thin mixture, he made it as a medicine, and therefore would make the blessing by whose word all things came to be. With regard to the assumption that this mixture is essentially medicinal, and therefore you would make it for medicine, and therefore the blessing would be by whose words all things came to be. I made already a blessing. Let's say l'chaim. Rav Yosef raised a challenge from the laws of Shabbos. The Mishnah says they agree that one may mix shatita on Shabbos. We're going to learn what that is. And drink Egyptian beer, which is Zaysoim Hamitzri, which contains a mixture of pungent spice in flour. And if it enters your mind to say that when one prepares shatita, his intention is for medicinal purposes, is medicine permitted on Shabbos?
No.
You're not allowed to make medicine on Shabbos. So if this kind of a food is considered a medicine, then you're not allowed to make it on Shabbos. Abai said to Rav Yosef, do you not hold that to be true? Didn't we learn in a Mishnah? All foods that are commonly eaten, a person may eat them for medicinal purposes on Shabbos. All drinks that are not designated for medicinal purposes, a person may drink them for medicinal purposes on Shabbos. Let's say a person has a canker sore. They would be able to drink some salt water. But what can you say in explaining that ruling? The man's intention is for the purpose of eating. Even though it has medicinal benefits, but you could just eat it. So here too, when he mixes the shatita, he wants to eat it, even though most people use it for medicine, but because it's edible and you could eat it, so you could say that he's eating it. The Gemara cites now another version of the story that we just explained. But what can you say in explaining that ruling? The man's intention for the purpose of eating, and the cure comes about on its own. Here too, the man's intention is for the purpose of eating, and the cure comes about on its own. Ostensibly, after proving that it is permissible to drink this shatita on Shabbos, we see it's clearly a type of food over which one is required to recite a blessing because it's food. It's not medicine, it's food. And if it's food, now we have a difficulty to understand the need for Rav and Shmuel to point out that one is required to make a blessing. If it's food, of course you have to make a blessing. Therefore, the Gemara says that the statement of Rav and Shmuel is necessary, as if the halacha had been derived solely from this Mishnah that permits drinking shatita on Shabbos. I would have said that that is only if your intention is for the purpose of eating, like that case scenario on Shabbos. If you're eating it on Shabbos, you're eating it in order for eating. And if the cure happens to cure you, so then it cures you. Here, however, since from the outset, during the weekday, you're allowed to create it specifically for medicinal purposes, just as one recites no blessing when he ingests medicine, let him recite no blessing over the shatita as well. Therefore, Rav and Shmuel taught us here, since he derives pleasure from eating it, even though it's medicine, he is required to recite a blessing. So I guess those medicines that taste good, we would have to make a blessing. We learned in our Mishnah that when it comes to bread, one recites a blessing who brings forth bread from the earth. The sages taught in the Brisa, what does one who eats bread recite before eating? Who brings forth blessing from the earth. Rabbi Nehemiah says the blessing is phrased who brought forth bread from the earth. Rava says everyone agrees that the term moitzi means brought in the past tense, as we have another verse that says God who brought them forth from Egypt is for them like the horns of a wild ox. So what is the disagreement is when it comes to hamotzi. This is a grammatical discussion. The rabbis say that the extra hay in front means that God brought forth in the past tense because it says, who brought forth for you water from the rock of the flint. Mommy and Tati Heart, should I show them to Beilester? No?
What?
Okay. Mushka made a pretty drawing, lots of hearts.
Actually, is she gonna show it to me?
She didn't want to show this one. Take another paper from that pile of papers in the corner there. What's this? Oh, can I show this one to Beilester? Okay, Mendel made a very pretty picture. Let me turn off the blurring effect. Here. So over here you have a Torah cover. Over here you have the sash of the Torah. Over here you have the Torah and it's open. Over here you have the table on which we read the Torah, and here we have the pointer where we're up to in the Torah. Isn't
Very
that a
nice.
beautiful drawing? Beautiful, Mendel.
Thank you.
Okay, so with regard to the term hamotzi, as the rabbis hold that hamotzi means God brought forth in the past tense, we have a verse to support this, as it says, who brought forth for you water from the rock of the flint, which depicts a past event. Rabbi Nehemiah, who holds that hamotzi means God brings forth in the present tense, we have a verse to support that in Moses' prophecy to the Jewish people in Egypt, as he says, and you will know that I am the Lord your God who is bringing you forth from under the burdens of Egypt. So in that context, Hamoitzi is used with regard to an event transpiring in the present or possibly even one that will transpire in the future. So because he says that, it is inappropriate to include this term in a blessing about the past, because if you have the bread in front of you already, then it has previously already been brought from the earth. What do you want to get? Not right now. And the rabbis, how are they going to respond to that proof? The rabbis interpret that verse to mean the Holy One, blessed be He, said to Israel as follows: when I bring you forth, I will perform something for you, that you will know that I am the one who brought you forth from Egypt. As it is written, and you will know that I am the Lord your God who brought you forth. So in this verse too, Hamotzi refers to the past. Moses is telling the Jewish people that God is going to help you. And you will say, looking back at the past, that God brought you forth from Egypt. On that note, the Gemara relates the sages would praise Rabbi Zera. One second. There was a Rabbi Zera. Second. Okay, there was a certain sage, and we don't have his name here. And the rest of the sages would praise him. And who was he? He was the son of Rav Zvid, the brother of Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Zvid, to the great teacher Rabbi Zera. And they said that this man is a great man and he is an expert in blessings. Rabbi Zera said to the sages, when he comes to you, bring him to me so I can meet him. I want to meet him if he's an expert in blessings. One day he happened to come before him, and they brought out bread to the guest, and he began, and he recited, who brought forth. He said motzi instead of hamotzi. Rabbi Zera grew annoyed and said, this is he of whom they say is a great man and an expert in his blessings. If he would have said hamotzi, we finished page 38a. Yes, we. No. I would have understood that he thereby is teaching us the meaning of the verse, who brought you forth from Egypt, and he thereby taught us that the halacha, that the final ruling, is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. However, what did he teach us by saying motzi? Everyone agrees that if he says motzi, he has fulfilled his obligation. The Gemara explains that the son of Rav Zvid did this because he wanted to preclude himself from taking sides in the dispute. And that's what kind of an expert he was. He was an expert also in politics. He preferred to phrase his blessing in a manner appropriate according to all opinions, rather than teach a novel concept which is not universally accepted. The Gemara concludes that, of course, the blessing is hamotzi. We hold that in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, who say that it also means who brought forth, and that is the blessing we make today, hamotzi. Next. There should be a bottle in the fridge that's not all the way empty. That's not all the way full, I mean. Bring it here and let's see. We learned in our Mishnah about vegetables. Do you remember what's the blessing we make on vegetables? Belester.
Well, over boiled vegetables, you recite, "Who creates fruit of the ground."
So over all vegetables. We recited in the Mishnah that over vegetables we make the blessing. Not now, maybe soon. Maybe when I'm done the Gemara class. If you sweep and clean up the whole kids' room, then yeah. If you and Mendel sweep up the kids' room and clean it all up, then I'll let you put on the story table. Okay, we're done, colors. Oh, wonderful. Mushka, do you want? Oh, you don't have to. Would you like some cold water? Man, then you can. And if you'd like some, you can ask. Please do not. Please not mess around. I want to give you guys the treat when we get home. You're gonna have to be listening to my instructions for that to happen. You better be careful to make sure that this doesn't spill, because if this spills, it could ruin my whole computer. So you're gonna stop jumping right here, or I'm just gonna have to move this here. That would be better. Okay. Yeah, over vegetables. We make the blessing. I gave you an idea. If you like it, do it. If you don't, don't. Clean up the kitchen. Something. Yes, you can have the kitchen. We can put in the story kit. Okay. Well, I don't want to know. That's not what will help you. That's not what we're doing. Okay. Help you. So then keep screaming and you won't get the treat, and that will be fine. No. Okay. I'm continuing in my Kumar class. No. Okay, so what we found interesting is that Brett Mendel's going to clean up. Go help him. You want a hug? I can give you a hug. No, I don't. Oh. So the Gemara comments that the Mishnah taught vegetables together with, and therefore we have to say that they are similar to bread. From this analogy, one may infer that just as bread is food that was transformed by fire, so too vegetables retain the blessing. Who creates the fruit of the ground also after they were transformed by fire, which means that if you cook vegetables, you're still, or boil them or bake them, you're still going to make the same blessing. Who creates the fruit of the ground. Ravnai said in the name of Abaya that this means that over boiled vegetables one recites, who creates the fruit of the ground. From where is this matter inferred? From the fact that our Mishnah taught vegetables similar to bread, that just like bread which was cooked or baked.
Just the bread what?
Just as bread was cooked or baked and we make the blessing, so too the fruit of the ground, when it's baked or boiled, changed by fire, we still make the blessing who creates the fruit of the ground. Well, listen to videos. Yeah, you can put these things, and sometimes you have to wait. I have 15 more minutes, and I'm gonna have to do this. Do you want to take all this farm and put them back on the shelves? And I don't have anything for you to do. And if you keep mentioning that, I'm gonna be able to give you the treat right away. So I'm sorry if this is not for you. We're gonna have to figure something else. And I'm saying now it's no. And if you keep fetching, then I'm not gonna be able to give you the treat right away. You're allowed to fetch, but if you keep disturbing me and I'm not able to focus on the class, then I cannot give you the treat straight away. Rav Chisda taught in the name of Rabbeinu. Rav Chisda taught in the name of Rabbeinu. The Gemara asks, who is Rabbeinu? Whenever we say Rabbeinu, Rabbeinu means Rav. Over boiled vegetables, one recites who creates the fruit of the ground. And our rabbis who descended from Israel. And who do we refer to when we say, our rabbis who descended from Israel, that is, Ullah in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Over boiled vegetables when recites by whose word all things came to be. So the sages from Israel argued. The sages from Israel said that a regular vegetable, when it's raw, you will make the blessing who brings forth fruit from the ground. However, once you boil it, it changes blessings. Since after they are boiled, they are no longer the same as they were before. And Rav Chisda's opinion is the intermediate one. And this is what we explained before about apples and applesauce. And I say that there is an intermediate opinion. Any vegetable that when eaten in its original uncooked state, one recites by who creates the fruit of the ground. And then if you boil it, you will say by whose words all things came to be, because boiling damages it qualitatively. However, any vegetable that is not usually eaten in its uncooked state, then if you eat it in its original uncooked state, one recites by whose word all things came to be, because it is not typically eaten raw. And when he boils it, he recites who creates fruit of the ground because he made it into a better quality fruit. So for example, a raw potato, you would say by whose words all things came to be, and a cooked potato, you would say, or a baked potato, who creates the fruit of the ground. The Gemara asks, granted, any vegetable that if you're eating it raw, you will say by whose words all things came to be, then when you boiled it, you made it better. So you would say who creates the fruit of the ground. We have several vegetables like cabbage, chard, and pumpkin, which are virtually inedible raw, and boiling renders it edible. Cabbage, that's interesting. However, under what circumstances can you find the case of any vegetable that you could eat in its original uncooked state? And then, when you boil it, you would say by who creates fruit of the ground. Sorry. When can you find the case where you would say when it's raw, who creates the fruit of the ground? And when you boil it, you would say by whose word all things came to be, as boiling damages the vegetable qualitatively. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, a leek and garlic. They're much better when they're raw. I've never had raw leeks, but that's what he says. Rav Nachman taught in the name of Rabbeinu. And who is Rabbeinu over here? Rabbeinu is someone else. Over here, Rabbeinu is Shmuel. That if you eat boiled vegetables, you recite who creates the fruit of the ground. And our colleague who descended from Israel, from Eretz Yisrael. And who is that? That is Ullah in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Over boiled vegetables, one recites by whose words all things came to be. And Rav Nachman said that I say this is dependent upon and taught as a Tanaitic dispute, as it was taught in the Brisa with regards to the laws of matzah on Passover. One fulfills the mitzvah of matzah with a wafer soaked in water or with a wafer that was boiled, so long as it did not fall apart. That is the statement of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yosef says one fulfills the mitzvah of matzah if you soak the wafer in water, but not if you boiled it. Even if it did not dissolve, boiling it is going to change the blessing of the matzah, and it will no longer be considered matzah. So Rav Nachman concludes that this dispute with regard to boiled matzah reflects a larger dispute with regard to boiling in general, whether or not it diminishes the flavor of that which is boiled. It's all swept and everything? A few pieces, or it's like well, I think it's clean? Go back and check it to see that I would think it's clean. Sure.
What?
This approach is rejected by the Gemara. That is not so, because matzah and vegetables are very different.
Tati, do you want
As I'm going to be done in 12 minutes.
Okay.
That is not so. As everyone agrees that over boiled vegetables one recites who creates the fruit of the ground. You could say that everyone holds that boiled vegetables have the same quality as before. However, Rabbi Yosef said the halacha that one fulfills his obligation of matzah if it is soaked, but not if it is boiled, is because you require the taste of matzah. And when you boil matzah, it loses its taste. However, here, even Rabbi Yosef agrees that boiling vegetables, excuse me, does not damage it qualitatively. So Uller's statement in the name of Rabbi Yochanan with regard to boiled vegetables was cited above. Uller said that Rabbi Yochanan said that if you're eating a boiled vegetable, you make the catch-all, the miscellaneous blessing, who creates food from the ground. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan said, so this is a different sage quoting Rabbi Yochanan, and he says over boiled vegetables one does recite who creates fruit of the ground. And Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes said that Rabbi Yochanan said, over boiled vegetables one recites by whose word all things came to be. Commenting on this, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said that Ulla established his error in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, which conflicted the prevailing opinion among the sages in Babylonia, and he says that the correct version of what Rabbi Yochanan said is not that of Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, rather that of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, which is in agreement with the sages of Babylonia, which is that even if you boil vegetables, you still make the blessing who creates the fruit from the ground. Rabbi Zera wondered, with regard to Ulla's approach, what in the world is going on over here? How are we putting Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes in the same discussion with Rabbi Chia bar Abba? Yeah?
Both of that. And you put the go between one.
Wonderful. Very, very proud of you. I'm going to turn the story on for you now. I'm sorry, just give me just a second.
But then pause it and I'll stop. You have to put like the one wheel. I think we was going back home.
Here. Here, I apologize. The Royal Rescue, you guys are listening to, yeah? You're up to number 12.
Well,
Yeah, let's go into the kids' room.
where's the off?
Crusaders are coming, okay? Wait till you get there to press play. Rabbi Zera wondered with regards to Ulla's approach. What is the matter of Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes doing in the same discussion as Rabbi Chia bar Abba? Rabbi Chia bar Abba was meticulous and learned the halacha from Rabbi Yochanan, his teacher. Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes was not meticulous. Furthermore, every 30 days, Rabbi Chia bar Abba would review his studies before Rabbi Yochanan, his teacher, while Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes does not review his studies. So we know and we can see who is going to be the more accurate transmitter of the rules. Furthermore, aside from these reasons concerning the difference between a wise and meticulous student like Rabbi Chia bar Abba and a student like Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, one can also bring proof from the custom of Rabbi Yochanan, as the lupin is boiled 7 times in a pot and eaten as dessert at the end of the meal. They came and asked Rabbi Yochanan with regard to the blessing, what should they say over this lupin? And he said to them, one recites over it who creates the fruit of the ground, indicating that one recites the blessing over boiled vegetables. Do you know what a lupin is?
No.
Let's find out what Google says. The lupin vegetable. It looks almost like corn or a bean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here he says you just have to soak them for 4 days. So I guess that if you don't want to soak them for 4 days, here. It looks very interesting. Where does it say? It doesn't say, it's very bitter. It's,
Done.
what do you mean it's done?
Like, let's go take that part was done.
Okay, so then we go like this. Now you press play on the next one. Lupini bees are poisonous if you don't soak them and boil them. Okay? I'm sorry, soaking it, boiling it. Okay, anyways, I'm sorry, I digress. So it has to be boiled a bunch of times, and even after being boiled a bunch of times, where did our Talmud
Still
go?
bitter.
After you boil it 7 times, then the alkaloids or whatever the toxins get released, and it becomes a very sweet food. Um, so we see, first of all, that the student, sorry, let me just try and open this page again in a different. The students, is my internet coming through okay?
No, I don't see any text.
Rabbi, do you hear me?
Yes.
You see me?
Uh-huh.
That's good. Okay, that's it's starting to load. There we go. Okay. Okay. So we see here conclusively that Rabbi Yochanan was of the opinion that that if you boil vegetables, you still make the blessing by whose words all things came to be. Furthermore, Rabbi Chiya bar Abba said, I saw Rabbi Yochanan eat a salted olive, which halachically is considered cooked, and he said a blessing over it before and after. Granted, if you say that boiled vegetables remain in their original state and cooking does not qualitatively damage them, then certainly at the start one would recite over it who creates the fruit of the tree, and at the end one would recite the one blessing abridged from the 3 blessings of waste after meals, just like any of the other species for which is the Holy Land of Israel was praised. However, if you say that boiled vegetables do not remain in their original state, then at the start one would recite by whose word all things came to be, and at the end, what blessing would he recite? There are several opinions that hold that no blessing is recited after eating something whose initial blessing was by whose word all things came to be. The Gemara rejects this, and the Gemara says that is no proof, because perhaps Rabbi Yochanan held that on items over which at the start one recites by whose word all things came to be, at the end you will recite the after blessing who creates many forms of life and their needs for all that you have created. So the fact that he made an after blessing doesn't tell us what the original blessing was.
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi Yitzchak bar Shmuel raised an objection to the ruling that over boiled vegetables and raw vegetables one would make the same blessing. From a brisa concerning the halachas of eating bitter herbs on Passover. Vegetables which one may fulfill their obligation in the mitzvah of bitter herbs on Passover, one fulfills their obligation with both the vegetables themselves as well as the stalk. However, one may neither fulfill their obligation with pickled vegetables or boiled vegetables, or cooked vegetables. And if it would enter your mind that they remained in their original state, then why are boiled vegetables not fit for use in the mitzvah of eating bitter herbs by the Seder? The Gemara answers, no, it's different there. Even if we say that boiled vegetables maintain their original state and status when it comes to making a blessing, we require the taste of the bitter herbs. And if you boil the horseradish, it is no longer bitter. So there is no proof that boiling damages the vegetable qualitatively. The Gemara related above about a story that Rabbi Yochanan recited a blessing over a salted olive. With regard to that story, Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Rabbi Zera, how did Rabbi Yochanan recite a blessing over a salted olive after he ate it? Since the pit was removed, he did not eat it. Give me just a second. Yay, we finished page 38b. Making progress today. So it lacks the requisite measure because the smallest quantity of food that is considered eating is the size of an olive bulb. And if you have an olive without its pit, it's smaller than an olive. So he said to him, do you hold that we require a large olive as the measure of food necessary in order to recite a blessing after eating? We require only a medium size. And that olive was the medium size because the olive they brought before Rabbi Yochanan was a big olive. So even after they took out its pit, it still had enough volume to be required to make the after blessing. Now we're going to stop share. And we're going to tell Bela Esther that she should have a wonderful week. And please send our regards also to Rachelea. And we'll see you, God willing, next week.
Thank you.
Take good care.
You too.